and then we'll allow some time, maybe 15 minutes for questions.
Okay.
I invited Eddie Lemire to give us a presentation on extracurricular activities. He is a very experienced college counselor and also a former college admission officer. He has helped a lot of people that I know, and I felt he's always very knowledgeable and very willing to share. So this particular topic is how to build your extracurricular profile. So with that, Eddie, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. So let's get moving because I have so much to cover, but feel free to put questions in the chat. I'll try and handle them as we go through things, and I've got some time for questions at the end. Um, but let's start with this. So with me, as Sylvia said, I worked in private college admissions. I started off in private college admissions in 1999, moved to UC San Diego in 2002, and I've been doing this in the Silicon Valley since 2006. But that's not very interesting. Um, Neither is this. I've been in a lot of different publications, cited in 50 successful University of California application essays. But again, nothing that anybody's really that interested in. What everybody is interested in, or the 17 folks that we have here right now, and the millions at home watching this on YouTube, we have an agenda of developing the personal profile that I think is going to be significant. And today we're going to go over summer programs in particular. I have several different presentations that address this, two more afterwards. So if you aren't getting enough extracurricular activity information from this, there'll be quite a bit afterwards that for two other sessions that I'll be giving as well. But today we're going to go generally over what the personal profile means, the progression that students should get exposed to from one year to the next, what programs for summer programs, because this is really what we're focusing on today, tend to move the needle in the application process, some case studies, as well as a calendar of how things should move, as well as questions at the end. Um, so to start things off, with an overview of the personal profile, you kind of have to understand how this fits into everything with college admissions. And college admissions really has three main parts: the transcripts, the test scores, and everything else. The important parts of the transcripts, the grades, and the rigor, the difficulty of the classes, AP, IB, honors, and stuff like that. Test scores, one rule: the higher the better, out of 1,600 on the SAT, 36 on the ACT. Those are the two big parts of the application, the academic arm of the review, the transcripts and the test scores. What kind of gets you in, though, is everything else. And everything else is stuff that you cannot control for the purposes of this discussion: gender, where you go to high school, geographic area, and stuff you can control. And the stuff that you can control is typically the extracurricular profile, the activities, how you spend your time. Um, so, how you spend your time can be broken up into a ton of different ways for a high school student, and a lot of them overlap with one another. In school clubs and involvement, that's co curricular work, everything from volunteering to educational prep programs, summer programs, which is what we're going over today, art, music, and dance, awards, leadership. Like I said, a lot of different ways to kind of break this all down, and a lot of categories that overlap with one another, like research, and volunteering and so-called internships can all kind of be the same thing. But all of these work to develop the extracurricular profile. All of these come into play when the application is being reviewed. Um, when you're developing and figuring how you want to develop the extracurricular profile, there are some rules of thumb. The first of these is that you want to be round and pointy. You want to be well rounded. You want to have your leadership. You want to have your volunteering. It's nice to have art. It's nice to have sports. It's nice to have um, uh, uh, um, co-curricular and out of school stuff both as well. So you want to have a little of this, a little of that, and you want pointy parts, you want hooks, you want spikes, as they're said. You want a couple of things that you can really show that you're committed to and involved in. One of those should be academic. So if you're a biology pre-med major, you want to have your volunteering, you want to have your art, you want to have your sports, you want to have the biology spike, for instance. You want to have research, summer programs, publications, obviously, anything like that, competitions. And then it's always nice to have another spike. Maybe you really are a fantastic musician or a great athlete, or you've got an interesting skill or hobby that you want to riff on in the application. But well-rounded with a couple of hooks, a couple of spikes, a couple of areas that really define who you are that you can speak about in detail in the application. Um, Rule number two is that there are some hierarchies when it comes to involvement in extracurricular profile development. At the top of the hierarchy, at the top of the scale, deep, sustained academic engagement, which can come in multiple forms, everything from summer programs to competitions to research, publications, and so forth. So at the top, deep, sustained academic commitment. After that, leadership. Leadership is hugely important. Leadership, every year, students ride leadership into Berkeley and into a lot of other schools. But leadership is one of those things that colleges have always coveted for its own sake, but even more now with the number of students applying, because it's a real easy way to separate one student from like 40 others. You know, Mission San Jose, Smoke Signal has 2 or 3 editors in chief, has 30 or 40 editors, or 30 or 40 writers. ASB president is going to be, one person and have 400 students per class underneath them. So leadership separates one student from another. Just being a blunt instrument more than anything else is its significance. So at the top, academic stuff, then leadership, then everything else as it kind of filters in and falls in. Um, so rules of thumb: be round with pointy parts. And in the categorization of activities, at the top, academic, then leadership. But how do you want to move from one year to the next? And some of you obviously have students that are pre-high school. Some have students that are a little bit further along in high school. So this is going to kind of get everybody on the same page. But some basic rules I think to follow when considering where you want to be in the process. In ninth grade, in Fremont, the Bay Area schools in particular, ninth grade is all about getting your sea legs, making sure that you understand how to do well in school, developing study skills, getting adjusted to the social environment, avoiding toxic relationships, avoiding toxic friendships, and managing your physical and mental health. For extracurricular stuff, it's really about you want to shop and drop. You want to throw a bunch of stuff up against the wall and see what sticks. You don't have to commit yourself to any field of study just yet. Get involved in clubs, get involved in volunteering, low level type involvement that can just get you exposure and get you to understand what more advanced activities in those fields would be. Like if you're joining a math club or a math counts club at a school, you're going to get exposed to ANC, AME testing, local competitions, and things of that nature. So ninth grade, shop and drop, get exposure, establish the foundations. 10th grade, you want to build a little bit. You want to have kind of a step ladder approach where you're moving up the step ladder and have more advanced involvement in 10th grade than you did in ninth grade. You want to have more of a level of responsibility in the activities that you're at. But I'd say the big thing in 10th grade is right around the winter, you need to have an idea of the direction that you're going for your field of study in college. Will it be engineering or will it be everything else? Because engineering and everything else are kind of different in the way that you set things up. I didn't mention this when we were on it with the slide about the well-rounded and pointy parts, but with engineering and CS, you need to be a little bit more focused. You need to be a little bit more narrow than well-rounded. So by winter of 10th, students really just need to know, in my opinion, am I going to be doing engineering or computer science? Or will I be doing anything else? Because engineering and computer science demand more development in quant skills. They demand more direct exposure to CS and engineering. And to be honest, that goes, I would say, for every professional major. CS and engineering, nursing, architecture. If you're going directly into a high-level competitive professional major, then by winter of 10th, you want to make sure that you know that. So you'll have summers summers after 10th and summers after 11th to kind of address the activities there. So engineering and other pre-professional programs, nursing, the architecture, like I said, kind of a little bit different and you need to be a little bit more focused. 11th grade and the summer after 11th is what you can call the capstone year, the year where everything kind of comes together, where you're applying to the most competitive summer programs, where if possible, you're doing some kind of research and publication, where if you're competing at the highest level possible in the academic competitions. So again, moving up the ladder in terms of responsibility, commitment, academic sophistication. Um, how does that work out as far as individual academic programs go? Because, like I said, we're talking about the whole profile in general over these next several discussions. But today is really on the summer programs. One reason is because they're starting to open up. So we want to make sure that you know exactly what to expect when these start opening up more and more over the coming months. But let's take an overview of these academic programs, these summer programs, and almost all of them are over the summer. You'll find some like in Spirit AI or the Kenyan Online Writers Workshop that'll go on throughout the year, but almost all of them are in the summer, in particular in July. Um, do you need these summer programs? Do you need to have these things that the kids go to or sleep away or whatever, and go through a real rigorous application process? Not to mention it being oftentimes not cheap. Yes and no. If the student is interested in the life sciences, they typically need some sort of a structured program. If you're going to be doing wet lab work, you usually need something that's going to be taking place face to face on a university campus in order to get a little bit more depth in your academic interest. I would say that engineering, particularly mechanical engineering, civil engineering, chemical engineering, material science, largely similar. You typically need face-to-face interaction and a program, a structured program. For humanities, poetry, English, philosophy, social sciences, econ, history, and computer science, you can really do a lot of those kind of DIY. I mean, computer science, you can do a lot, you can do almost everything in a do-it-yourself type fashion by pulling together community college courses, local internships, local summer programs, or local short-term day programs, I mean to say, not full-fledged structured summer programs. So these the bio, the life science, and the hard physical engineering majors are the folks, the students that typically need more of the structured, lengthy summer programs. Um, what programs out there though really move the needle? Because when we're talking about these summer programs, you wanted the student to be exposed. You want them to understand what they want to do. You want them to get to learn more about what they want to do. But you're also at some point trying to see how it's going to give you leverage in the college admissions process. And to be honest, out of the thousands of summer programs out there, there are not tons that are really going to move the needle as far as getting you into college. Some of the lower level ones help you develop, your skill set to get to the higher level ones. So I'm not throwing those out at all, but just for the record, there's a handful of elite programs out there that are like these programs. You got them on the resume. You're probably going to wind up in a top 15 school. At the Bank of America Student Leaders Program, that's open right now. That's essentially a program where you work with B of A finance folks in order to work with a local nonprofit or NGO, helping develop them financially over the course of the summer. So it's an internship where you're doing financial development for a nonprofit in usually a low income area. Sponsored entirely by Bank of America. A stipend goes along with it, so you're paid for it. The next one up, the Clark Scholars Program, of all places, Texas Tech University in beautiful Lubbock, Texas. Like 10 students every year that are on campus for 8 weeks doing high level faculty mentored research. RSI, the Research Science Institute, that's run collaboratively by MIT and Harvard. This is the pinnacle of STEM summer programs. 50 domestic kids admitted, 50 international kids admitted, super low single digit admit rate. Top level scholars go there. On the flip side, that's for STEM. On the flip side, for humanities, it's a program called the Telluride Scholars Program, TAS. It's gotten super weird over the past couple of years and has a lot of funky ideology that goes on with it. But it's been around since the 50s, and they have turned out like Francis Fukuyama, who I don't know if he's a Nobel laureate, but he's done a lot of economics and history work. He works at Stanford. He went through TAS as a teenager, real again top scholars. And the bottom one I have here is MOP or MOSP, Math Olympiad Summer Program. And this is usually through Amy scores. So this is typically going to be a competition based program, but these are the top ones that are out there. Um, another group, and these are the programs that are say right below those. You don't run into a whole lot of people that have done MOSP or RSI or TAS or Clark Scholars, but you will run into a number of students that have done these programs that are still good, still probably admitting in low and mid single digits, 10%, but real quality, fabulous programs. Can't ride them into the top tier schools like you can RSI and the other ones, but still stellar. Simons at SUNY Stony Brook, that's a genetics program. Garcia, that's a material science program, also at SUNY Stony Brook. The next three of these guys, Ross Promise and Sumac, are all math programs at Ohio State, Boston University, and Stanford, respectively. Also at Stanford is this program called GRIPS and this other one called SIMMER. GRIPS is a genetic research program. SIMMER is an immunology program. Um, Jackson Lab, another it's a bio program, life sciences. This program, HSHSP at Michigan State, real selective. All of the NASA programs, there's a number at Moffett Field, if you want face-to-face type work, are real selective. SSP at Caltech, fabulous. Does astrophysics where you track the movement of a comet. And MNTSI, the Management Technology Summer Institute at UPenn, where they feed into that. That's one that moves the needle. MNTSI. It costs a lot of money, and I mentioned that later, but it's something like 30% of the students in the undergraduate program at Penn, this combined business and engineering program, have gone through this summer program. So that one does move the needle. Programs that are still good, all of these guys, that most of which you've probably heard of: Cosmos, the Davis Young Scholars Program, UC Santa Barbara Research Science Academy, UC Santa Barbara Research Mentors Program, the Beaverworks Science Institute. Beaverworks is fabulous, run by MIT, really good for computer science. And these are still super hard. I mean, you look at Cosmos, and Cosmos is, for all intents and purposes, an entry level program for the sciences. But every year, Mission San Jose has 250 kids apply every year. It's like a 10% acceptance rate from our area. You go out to Reading or something like that, much easier to get into Cosmos. But you want to come from the Bay, you're competing with hundreds of kids from your same school. And especially for like the computer science programs, just brutally. You want to do like study of slugs at UC Santa Cruz, quite a bit easier, but you want to do like AI and stuff, really tough. Still, all of these programs good, some harder than others. Cosmos, super hard. Epic at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Roar for computer vision at Berkeley. Not quite as difficult. Um, and then we have some starter programs. So for students that just kind of getting started with the process, and want to get some exposure, ninth graders. Inspirit AI is really good for CS. Girls Who Code is great for, they've got a summer program, a volunteer thing, and a class. They're really good, obviously, for girls. And there's a group of programs called WISE at the University of Illinois that are like a week long, 2 weeks long, online, as well as face to face. They do everything from aerospace engineering to data science. Let me see. Let me know if you wanted me to stop and answer questions at any time, or if you wanted to chat them, you can feel free. I might be going. I'm going a little bit fast, but it's nothing that I think is too difficult to understand. You've got life science programs here, political science, humanities, a great program at Stanford, and UCLA has a great digital media program that you just have to register for, and you're good to go. All of these are solid. There are a lot of programs out there that I would say are not quite as. I mean, you can. There's room for everybody, but a lot of the programs that you'll find that are like pre-college programs or summer college programs, not fabulous and not cheap. And to be frank, there does tend to be an inverse relationship between the cost of the program and how much it impacts admissions. The one exception to that is the program that I mentioned, I think, the Management and Technology Summer Institute at UPenn. Like I said, there's the Penn. UPenn is really well known for its interdisciplinary nature and its interdisciplinary program. And there's an amazing program between the Wharton School of Business, and the School of Engineering and Applied Sciences, called the Jerome Fisher Program in Management and Technology. And it's all about technology entrepreneurship. Um, uh, 30% of the students in that program, as I mentioned, go through the summer program, the Management and Technology Summer Institute. This is the one that I really can think of where it's like, okay, this you got to pay a lot for this, and it does impact. So there you go. But in most cases, it's not that way. Like you look at like, Columbia, and the Columbia summer programs are like, what is it, 3 weeks, $12,000. So you get you get a used Honda Civic from like, 2016, same as your summer program, where you could probably get the same thing really at, at Ohlone or Foothill or De Anza or one of our 118 community colleges for quite a bit less. But you see this, and then you see a similar program or a program that's just intended for local students, where it's a day program. This program, conversely, the Columbia Science Honors Program does tend to impact admissions. It's very inexpensive. It's only for high achieving local kids from New York and New Jersey. Obviously, not anything for us, but you get the idea. The point is the comparison of the cost as well as the effectiveness of the program. Similar at Stanford, where if you have nothing to do over the summer, you want to take classes at Stanford and live there for the low cost of $18,000 plus, you could do such a thing. And a lot of international students especially get very attracted by having a Stanford transcript, getting a Stanford meal plan, getting a Stanford ID. For us local folks, though, we can do something that doesn't cost quite as much, like grips. Stanford has a whole website of their science outreach opportunities. I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but if you Google Stanford OSO, Office of Science Outreach, and you go to the high school programs, all of the local ones are either, I think, free or they come with a stipend. I don't think there are many that have costs. So GRIPS, the genetics and genomics research, free. SIMMER, the Summer Immunology Medical Research Program, I think that might come with a stipend. STARS, one of their surgery programs, I think that one might be free also. So yeah, but again, inverse relationship between the cost of the program and usually how effective it is in admissions. Not necessarily the quality. I'm sure you still you pay $18,000 for summer at Stanford. Boy, you better be happy with it. The quality better be top notch. But is it going to wind up doing anything with admissions? Probably not too much. But that's all fine. A topic for a different day. The calendar of how this is going to work if you decide to do these summer programs, it starts moving right around now. Right now, there are some programs open. Like if you look at the upper left-hand portion of the screen, the top one there, Nestle Y, is a great program run by the State Department that exposes students to foreign languages. And if you've got a little bit of skill in Mandarin, or Farsi, you can get into this program, and it's really good. We had a student from Merced do it 2 years ago, and she loved it. She did the Mandarin immersion program. It was fabulous. The Yale Young Global Scholars Program has opened. They have an early deadline because obviously January isn't early enough. They've got an early action deadline of like October 20th. But if you get in, you have to pay early, which is always the little hustle that the summer programs have. The Bank of America Student Leaders Program, that one comes, as I mentioned, with a stipend. That one is due in the middle of December. Super hard, though. The Telluride Scholars Program and RSI both due in January, but they're open now. Tons of essays on those. Most of the other programs will open in November and December. Cosmos opens in January, but most of the other guys will open over the next couple of months. You need to ask teachers for letters of recommendation before the winter break, especially if you're in the Fremont Unified School District, because the teachers are always reluctant to write tons of LORs for summer programs. So ask teachers before break, before they get filled up, because they're not always very accommodating when it comes to that, because they get deluged. Over the break, you want to work on the summer program essays. And then as January and February come in, the deadlines roll through. Cosmos is due usually the 10th of February. You'll get replies back in February, March, and April, and that's when you want to develop kind of like the backup plans for the summer. Research type stuff, community college classes. We'll speak about that in another seminar. This one is just about the summer programs. But this is the calendar. So right now is when you need to, everything is always getting with the college admissions, always getting harder and earlier and more expensive and more complicated. So now we are in October, and the crazy summer program things are opening already. Who would that wasn't the case a couple of years ago. Um, Now, with all of that, I put together some case studies because it's always fun to see a student's profile, see where they wound up. In these case studies, I've got six of them. They are I go over more than the summer programs, but it can give you an idea. If nothing else, it'll not like you need to know the competition that students are up against. If you're in Fremont, or if you're in Palo Alto, or even like Logan, Milpitas, you have really good students. But to go over some case studies and to maybe pay attention to a couple of things that I try to highlight during the review of these. So the first student we have here is Alice. All of the names have been changed. Um, Alice admitted to computer science at Northwestern. She was at a local Bay Area private school, not one of the elite ones, not a Harker or a Menlo. She did Cosmos at Santa Cruz, top summer program. UC Santa Barbara Summer Research Academy, good summer program, 10 to 15% acceptance rate. Um, Leadership in an applied computing foundation competition, two dance teams captain, um, ASB representative, good solid leadership, and also Yusaco or Usako silver. So pretty good, solid with that, but consistent, good, deep, high level academic involvement, leadership. Shirley C., local public school, Los Altos High School, did the Stanford STARS internship. And the STARS one is a surgery one. It's like a plastic surgery or cosmetic. No, it's not it's a reconstructive surgery internship. And it comes with a stipend. She also was on the Los Altos City Council Youth Committee. Youth committees are great ways to get leadership. The Fremont Youth Advisory Council is really active, for instance. She did a lot of things squarely in line with her major. Hep B Awareness Youth Conference, Hep B Awareness Advisory Board, also did the UC Santa Barbara Summer Research Academies. So yeah, leadership, deep focused academic involvement, and she had Wellesley and WashU and a couple of others too. But Alice had had a lot of others with Northwestern too. She also had Wellesley. Um, okay, Michael Z, Caltech. Um, His profile is interesting. He had the Berkeley Roar Summer Program, their autonomous vehicles program, not over the top as far as selectivity. He did Inspirit AI and their AI Scholars program, where he did some cool computer science and computer vision research. Usico Gold, which was solid. Software developer intern, good experience. On varsity tennis captain. I don't know how much of a role that played. He was recruited at one point, but the coach left, and it's Caltech. They're like D3, and they never win anything. So maybe it played a minor role, but still, the leadership definitely didn't hurt. Next one. This is the world beater that we had a couple of years ago, class of 21. He's at Stanford. He was a real stud. A B of A student leader. So in that selected program I talked to you about, Wharton program, selective program with that, Boy Scout to Eagle Scout, Stanford Econ intern under a Nobel laureate, two nonprofits that were founded and extended and developed. Really impressive stuff. Admitted Stanford EA as well as a slew of other schools. But I started working with him in eighth grade, and like from the get go, just like mercenary. Just that was the goal, was like stand like HYPS, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Stanford. Every step he took, every breath he took, was directed towards getting into one of the top tier schools, and he worked it all the way through. Really impressive, and he was one of the few kids that has ever pulled off a nonprofit organization that mattered, that did anything. Um, the last two, Saul. Claremont McKenna admitted early decision. He was Aragon or San Mateo High School. Wharton LBW summer program, lots of leadership. Eagle Scout, Business Econ Club founder, president. water polo, swim team captain, bio Olympiad club president, and good essay on Starbucks for the Common App essay. And the last one, this is the young lady from Merced, did Nestle Y at the State Department. She was a government gal. She went to Georgetown. Did Nestle Y a research program or a research project at UC Santa Cruz SIP in social sciences. She was a founder of a fundraiser during an earthquake in Turkey. And she went to Girls State, which is totally unknown in the Bay Area almost. It's an auxiliary program of the American Legion, and it's really it's conservative. And one student is selected from each school if they're nominated. For a girl and boy, there's Girl State and Boy State, and they do it, I think, at Sac State. But an excellent, very selective program for students in California, especially that want to do government. Um, okay, and here we had some questions, and I'll open the floor to questions. And I know I really went through that quickly, but it's Saturday night. And I don't want people. Everybody's got fun things I'm sure they're gonna do. But I went through that quickly. If you have any questions, which I'm sure you will, please chat them or you can ask them. I don't usually don't do the calling on people because it gets crazy. But if you want to chat them, then that's a really good way of doing it. Sylvia has already come up with some questions from the audience that I would like to address because you've asked them so kindly. So starting off in the first one, my children are in ninth and 10th grade. They're interested in double E and bio. What are some of the camps and summer programs that fit their interest in bio and double E? Um, Cosmos is going to be the one that they'll apply to, and that's going to be a hard one to get into. If you wanted something that was going to be a little bit easier to get into, Stanford has a number of programs in the life sciences that are good. Georgetown has several programs in the life sciences that are very good. Um, for like research, which everybody wants to do. There's ASDRP, which is solid. You know, it's not something that's like you're getting university published stuff, but it's still really good. It's off of Warm Springs, I think, aspiring scholars directed research program. So that's good for life science. For double E, depending on the student's grade level, there are a couple of programs out there that are really good for exposure to engineering. There's a program at Johns Hopkins called Exploring Engineering Innovation, and actually they do a they do a version of it at Ohlone or Chabot or Laney, where you don't need to do the room and board, but it's basically 4 weeks long, a half a week of double E, a half a week of CS, a half a week of mechanical engineering, a half a week of chemical engineering. So good overall engineering exposure. If you wanted something that was a little bit more oriented towards circuitry, there's a program called ESAP at Penn, Engineering Summer at Penn, that allows you to hyper focus on something like circuitry. Um, but all of those are solid, strong programs. For ninth and 10th grade, it's in both cases they're gonna if they want the camps, or they're going to probably want the camps because that's they're in the fields of study that I was mentioning earlier where the programs work well. If you're a bio kid, you're not gonna cut open a frog in your basement. You're gonna need to find a program with a wet lab. You need to go to a place that's going to allow you to do real scientific research. For double E, unlike CS, you do have a little bit of you're not going to be doing the for CS, you can do everything kind of. You don't need the program. You take community college classes, you can do USICO stuff, you can do Kaggle competitions, lead code competitions, um, research, internships. Double E, you need a little bit more of the program. Um, there are some good entry level engineering type programs. There's also a good program in Michigan called MMSS. It's more kind of classes than anything else, but it's solid. But I would say the programs that I mentioned, the Hopkins program, the Penn program. There's a program at San Luis Obispo called Epic Engineering Possibilities in College. That's a week long over the summer. That one's really good too. And those are all kind of entry level type things for ninth and 10th grade. Cosmos also you want to apply to, but Cosmos you just can't have any hope, you can't have any faith in it. It works out for I mean a lot of people do it, but it's really it's hit or miss. Um, so that's the first question. Great question about biology and electrical engineering summer programs. I hope that if you have any more questions about that, you'll follow up with me and chat me the questions. Um, Next question. My daughter is in 10th grade. She excels in humanities and liberal arts. Great. Different. Different than the rest of the Silicon Valley, but ordinary in math and STEM. She competes in national debate contests, got to TOC, and achieved scholastic writing. Good. Interested in poli-sci, law, humanities, literature, and creative writing. What are some of the prestigious programs and camps that can help her with the college applications? Really, I would say there would be three of them that are kind of on the radar. The Yale Young Global Scholars Program, the Stanford Summer Humanities Institute, and that program called TASK, the Telluride Scholars Program. All of those are good. She doesn't have to do a program, though. She could also do research with a faculty member because nobody wants to do research with humanities faculty members. She could do publishing in humanities high school journals. She could take classes. She could do competitions. She's already doing stuff with speech and debate. She's got, the summer programs would be good, but she can have a lot of different things going on. She could have one of the summer programs, take a college class in something like in some kind of cultural studies type thing, work with some kind of a faculty member. Like I said, if you're willing to, kind of do a little bit of hustling, working with the faculty members is not that tough. Um, okay, and there's a question then from the audience too, but great question with the humanities. And by the way, college admissions is done regionally, it's done locally, it's done by high school. So if you're coming from the Silicon Valley and you've got, humanities and liberal arts interest, indulge it for the applications. It's always good to look different than the normal group. As far as getting a job afterwards, that's like the terrifying part of the humanities, right? So maybe you get in with the humanities of a liberal arts, so you kind of shift things up as you normally can in undergrad. But it's a good place to be. And if she's already done TOC, if you're both qualifying for TOC, going to that, she's doing Scholastic. She knows what she's doing, so she's probably got some good stuff going on. Um, Let me do the third one here, and then I'll take the question from the audience. Okay, third one here. For a well-rounded eighth grade girl with solid academic performance at school, studying Algebra 2, honor science, extensive robotics competition experience, but minimum exposure to math or computing Olympiad, any recommendation for STEM or research camps? Primary goal is to further the strength and interest in STEM. Good question. For eighth, there's not tons out there. I mean, for ninth, there's not even tons out there. You really find the majority of the selective programs that'll make a difference will be rising 11th with a 16-year-old minimum. For eighth grade, what you're looking at is local exposure. You're looking at she's already doing robotics. She's already doing science stuff. Math, computing Olympiads. If she wanted to do something like that, Alpha Star off of Patrick Henry, off of Great America Parkway, they have a lot of stuff for USICO. They got a lot of stuff for Amy, I think, for AMC. Um, so if she wanted to do that, that works. If she wanted to do more with actually camps, at seventh, eighth grade, what you have is ATDP through UC Berkeley, CTY through Johns Hopkins, Stanford Pre-Collegiate, which I think allows rising ninth. So that's an option. And then you've got a lot of programs that are held at like university campuses that are kind of like Splash, which is good. Held at Stanford, held at Cal. There's also Summer Discovery that'll do a good amount of residential programs for middle schoolers at a lot of universities. But if you wanted those that were probably going to be the more of the local variety, that would be good, challenging ones, and not like CTY's local, but ATDP, Academic Talent Development Program at Berkeley, CTY through Hopkins, and the Stanford Pre-Collegiate Studies Program, which I'm almost positive is going to start doing stuff with Rising Nine. Those are all good. Yeah, let me know follow-up questions on that as well. Ooh, good. We've got 3 questions. My goodness. Okay. While I'm doing this, why don't I? And those are great questions there too. Let me go through this. Just so you know, our next presentations, and I'll speak with Sylvia about when these will be. Part 2, leadership, volunteering, and co-curricular involvement, so kind of social stuff. And then part 3, research competitions and nerding it up. Those will all be fun. like talking about all of those. Okay, just so you know, that's me at the bottom. That's the email with like the super long domain name that I'm sure everybody misspells. But it's Lemaire, Eddie at LemaireCollegeConsulting.com. Now let me actually talk. Let me go into the okay. So from the audience, um uh the five questions that were asked. I'm so happy that people are asking questions and good, lengthy, involved questions. My child is passionate about a diverse range of subjects and does not know what she will major in. How would you recommend approaching summer programs and extracurricular activities when she likes so many different things? She's a junior and has climbed the ladder in her activities. How can she capitalize on them if they are so different? That's a fabulous question. Fake it till you make it. Pick one and go in that direction. It depends on what they are. If she ultimately is like, I really want to do CS and I really want to stay in California, but I don't know, then you kind of have to apply CS because you want to keep UC in range, and UC is not going to allow you to change your major to CS. But for the most part, if she's an 11th, she's got a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of balls in the air, a lot of different things that she's had going on and that she's really good at. Pick one, and like I said, you gotta kind of fake it till you make it. Focus on that one. You don't have to focus tons of time. And I was just before this, I was talking to one of our students in Hong Kong. She has the same thing. She's got an interest in film, physics, data science. So basically, the plan is going to be we're gonna and sociology. So the plan is going to be until through the applications, focus on sociology and social sciences, and then apply the other interests to that. Working with a faculty member in social science while applying data science principles. If she continues stuff with film, try and focus that on sociology. But yeah, exactly the same thing. A current 11th grader, lots of different interests. Fabulous, looks great. It's good to be the Renaissance woman, but you want to find that one that because you're gonna be asked everywhere. What do you want to major in? And in the case of like Illinois, for instance, what do you want to major in? And talk about an experience you've had in the last 2 to 3 years that reflects that. You have to have content that you can draw from when you're replying to the why this major question. So long story short, focus it, fake it till you make it. Pick one, not like arbitrarily. I mean, make it an informed decision. But pick one and go with that, and then change once you get there, depending on what she wants to do. I mean, there's some things that like I said, you want to do UC, you want to do CS, you can't change. Great question. Okay, so next one. Which extracurriculars would you recommend for someone who loves math besides the competitions and tutoring? The prestigious math summer programs are hard to get in. Yeah, they're brutal. There's SUMAC, there's Ross, there's Promise, as I said. There's this other program called Spark, which is a quant program for students in Northern California. There's the Texas State Summer Math Program. There are some other programs that are more low level that students can wind up going into with math type stuff. There are local competitions, obviously, like Mandelbrot competitions, Camel competitions. Um, uh, I would do. It depends on what the field of study. You can also do like Awesome Math, which does AMC and Amy preparation. You can also pivot, and you could do something a little bit more oriented toward data science and applied statistics, and try and bring in the whole faculty thing that way. If you've got the math skills and you've got like some Python or R or MATLAB skills, you can usually pitch yourself pretty effectively to like social science faculty to work with them on some aspect of their research. And that's not uncommon now, the whole cold emailing thing. But it's not unusual for students with an interest in social sciences or humanities, along with some math or quant skills, to land those positions. So depending on her level of math, depending on her interest in data science, depending on how she wants to apply that, I would wind up going. Oh, you didn't even say it was a she; it might be a he. I would wind up. I would consider data science. I would consider some of the short summer, some summer programs in data science. Like there's a good one at Chicago. There's a good one, a solid enough one at Illinois. Um, uh, um, and then see about doing like applied math and stats or data science and helping somebody do their research. Um, uh, uh, yeah, but that's the thing is that if you've got I think that in a lot of these, with at this level, the computer science and the data science and the math can almost be kind of seen as a toolbox, where if you've got that skill, maybe you don't necessarily you don't maybe you don't go straight ahead within, like, oh God, let me just try and be the best, like the ultimate pinnacle computer science or math student that I can, but utilize it in such a way where it's going to wind up being a little bit more creative and kind of a more indirect approach to the field of study, using the math skill set in the service of something else. Okay. All right. Um, Next one. There are a lot of pay to play research opportunities with a hefty price tag. Are they worth it? Usually not. Is Pioneer Research Program indeed prestigious? Prestigious? No. Good? Yeah, it's okay. I did read something a couple of months ago from a former admissions officer that said, if I see Pioneer Research on a student's application one more time, I don't know what I'll do. So it seems as though a lot of these research programs like Pioneer and Lumiere and a couple of other ones that sprung up about 10 years ago are starting to be looked at as kind of like second rate. Um, but that doesn't mean that they're worthless. It just means that they're not going to necessarily move the needle for college admissions. Like I'll give you a good example. ASDRP. ASDRP is not prestigious. ASDRP does a good job with its students and helping them find like opportunities for publication and stuff, but by itself, ASDRP isn't like prestigious. It's at some like it's at some lab on Warm Springs, I think. Um, but everybody seems to get a lot out of it. They learn quite a bit from it. Their research skills are honed. So even without the pedigree to go along with it, they're still getting something out of it. Lumiere and Pioneer, I don't know enough about what they've been doing recently. There was a student I had a couple of years ago that didn't use them, but they used another one, and it was like it was no good. It was a beautiful presentation. The student did he had he wanted he and he sent it to me. He's like I did this summer program and she wasn't very smart. I was like, you got something published? How did that happen? He's like, I'll send it to you. He sent me a copy of the journal, and the journal was like a vanity journal that was published by the program, but it was done in a real slick way. It had like an ISBN number and everything. And then you get to the student's article, and it was flashy, it looked good, but then you go into it and he like did some survey monkey poll on how much students like to wear backpacks. There was nothing involved in it beyond that. So ASDRP, good, not going to move the needle with admissions, but good for its own sake. Will some of the other programs, like you mentioned, like Pioneer, be good with that? Yeah, it could help depending on what quality research they're putting out right now. By itself, is it going to help anybody get into college? No. And in fact, it's kind of right now being looked at as kind of like, if I did Pioneer like I did it, or one of my kids did, my son did it, I would probably put it on the application where I wouldn't mention Pioneer or Lumiere. I'd put like Dr. Ernest Rothstein mentor independent research project should put in this journal. So, yeah, the question, is it prestigious? No. Is it worth it? It depends on what else you got going on and what your relationship is with money. Um, Most of your case studies are for top tier students. Do you have any successful case studies to help a student who's not good, who is a good but not top tier student into getting into current colleges? Current situation: 10th grade, all A's, 1B, member of MUN, DECA, piano, volunteering, 2 years of presidential service award, tutoring at Kumon, assisting with website development and maintenance. Yeah, I mean, with that, I mean that's a good student. That's solid, and that's like if is a student like that in 10th going to potentially get, I mean, depending on what the plan is. I mean, if you want to get into a good CS program, is the student going to get into a top 20 CS program with that profile? Potentially, yeah. It depends on the math level they're at. Depends on where they apply. They probably get into Wisconsin if they've only got 1B. If this is all they have right now, is it going, and they don't do anything else, are they going to get into Harvard? Probably not. But they got a lot of ways to go. 10th grade, all A's, 1B. You probably get into a solid summer program and leverage that. Depends on their motivation, depends on their field of study. But I'm trying to think just off the top of my head. A couple of years ago, a student with like a whole bunch. I mean, and every year, kids with a whole bunch of B's get into top schools. They'll have something else going on. But as long as they've got the rigor and the curriculum, the fancy private schools can be a little bit flexible with some B's. You see a little bit less so. But a leader like a student a couple of years ago from California High, I think, with average grades, more than 1B, wound up headed the physics club at a new school that he transferred to right off the bat, started a physics and astronomy club. Um, did another organization where he brought urban kids out into rural areas to go stargazing. Did work with two faculty members in physics and astrophysics. So yeah, and then won up at Cal. So in spite of the fact that the student had several B's, which, like I said, doesn't move the needle, was no good with Berkeley. Still, worked out well. So 10th grade, a lot of time. The 10th grade hasn't even gotten one semester of grades in for UC yet. UC GPA hasn't even started. So tons of time. Don't get your hopes up like HYPS, but still good school, good. Get a good, yeah, good school. All right. I meant a good student. Thank you. All right. What is the Stanford program you mentioned? CTY, you said that's the Center for Talented Youth at Johns Hopkins. ATDP, that's at Berkeley. Stanford has a program called the Stanford Pre-Collegiate Studies Program. They've been reworking it over the past couple of years, though. It was all online. It might be online and face-to-face now. They've got a real wide array of different classes that they offer, and they're usually really cool and niche. Online, though, Stanford's not cheap with anything. So is it worth it to do that? It depends. I mean, if a kid likes the field of study, they've got some cool niche stuff out there. It's Stanford too, so you can feel good about that. Okay, you get a parking pass and get yourself a sweatshirt. But it's good. We've had a number of students through the Stanford Pre-Collegiate Studies program, like it a lot. I'm not as on board with it with the price tag for the online stuff. I mean, but what can you do? It's like that. It's fancy. Um, okay, let's see. Um, for a student who's president of a nonprofit and founded a few clubs, should we include everything involved in a single activity or spread them across multiple activities on the Common App? If it's just one activity, how can we squeeze all the club activities and events organized into one small box? Impossible. And that's what I've been dealing with the last couple of weeks with submission with Common App. So the Common Application is the application that you're going to be submitting the lion's share of your applications through. It gives you slots for 10 activities of 150 characters a piece. So like no space at all. You got to utilize additional information. Additional information is in the writing section. Underneath that, it's the second. It's additional information in writing underneath the COVID question. 650 words. Don't make it redundant with other parts of the application, but showcase all the relevant information in there. Common App gives you no space. You got to take advantage of what you can. Stick that stuff in additional information, elaborate on it, don't make it too much. You look at like UPenn and they're spending 10 minutes total on the whole application. So you want to make sure that, whatever you're getting is going to get a good read. You don't want to give people too much and they just kind of gloss over everything. But yeah, put it maybe in the main activities and then in additional information, elaborate on it. Good question. The goal is UC mid-tier in business or finance. Is it worthy to apply for summer programs? Maybe. For me, this is what characterizes good business applicants. Top quant skills, good leadership skills, relevant business stuff. Relevant business stuff can be DECA, FBLA, pitch competitions, National Economics Challenge, launching their own venture, getting a job at Starbucks. What I would do if the goal is UC is take a whole bunch of UC approved community college classes. They will bump up the GPA for them. And in the case of Berkeley and LA, you can add on one class after another to a theoretical maximum of like 5.0. So if the goal is UC, take advantage of our illustrious 118 institution community college system. All right. Any recommendation for a child who's not sure which area or major in college to pursue in the future? Any summer camps for them to explore different majors? That's a good question. There's not anything that looks. The one thing is like something like a survey of engineering program where you're exploring like different types of engineering, or like introduction to the business world where you're doing a little bit of finance, a little bit of accounting, a little bit of management. There's nothing that's like 3 weeks, and like 1 week is poetry, the second week is calculus, and the third week is like mechanical engineering. with something like that, I think the best opportunity is to get involved in the school clubs. That sounds like such a basic idea, but school clubs are like they got their finger on the pulse of what goes on. If you're in a bio club, you're going to learn about USABO. If you're in a math club, you're going to learn about math counts, volunteering opportunities, math competitions, and math camps. All of these little club things that you go to every week during lunch, it'll at least get you exposed to other stuff. If that doesn't work, then what I would go for would be, pick the top three things the student is interested in and do week-long things for all of them over the summer. Say they're interested in writing and autonomous vehicles and economics. Then they do the San Jose writing workshop for 2 weeks over the summer at San Jose State. ROAR, the UC Berkeley autonomous vehicle program for 2 weeks at Berkeley. And what was the last thing I said? I said something else. Did I say business? I said economics. The Foundation for Teaching Economics, 1 week over the summer. Yeah. So yeah, either clubs or a little of this, a little of that. Okay. How should my student approach awards? She would prefer not to enter competitions, specifically to earn. Well, that's the only reason you enter competitions. How would she earn awards by excelling in her areas of activities? It would depend on what you'd classify as an award. I think that, because a lot of students on the application will put a Cosmos certificate as like an award or an honor. Um, but I don't think you necessarily need awards. Awards are one component of other things. Like I'll give you a good illustration, math. There are some kids that like doing applied math and statistics. There are other kids that want to do math research. There's a third group of kids that like doing math summer programs, specifically in game theory. And there's a whole fourth that are into AMC, Amy, and everything going on with math competitions. So do all of those kids do math competitions? No. And they're not necessarily getting awards and stuff. And to be frank, in the common application, which we're going through right now, there's a whole section for academic awards, and not all students have like 5 slots filled up. So I would say that if she doesn't want to do competitions solely for the sake of getting awards, it's going to be hard to find, awards that'll be out there aside from so like best in class, like green and white awards. And it also depends on the competitions. I mean, like if it's if she's got like really good at writing. A lot of students will enter writing competitions, not really thinking about the award, but kind of showcasing their writing to other students. But I would say, like, I might turn the question on its head. Do you really need the awards? If you can get them, great. Because like college admissions, more is better, top tier is always better, higher is always better, better scores are always better. But if it's going to be something like, I don't want to compete, I don't want to go into competitions for just awards, and I'm also interested, you know, in math, and that's it, then it's going to be hard to find, kind of the awards, because that's the only place that you're going to wind up getting is competitions where you're in it, solely to see where you're at. Good question. If you wanted to email me, the email below, I'll be happy to answer that question. Um, okay. Next one, great question. If my child works on some independent projects without a mentor, would that be considered as a research project at all to be put on the application? It depends on what they do with it. If they showcase it in a conference, if they have it in a journal, if they have it reflected somewhere, then it can be put on the application. If they're just doing it in their bedroom and there's no deliverable, then there's probably something better they can put on their application that'll have some evidence of it. With something like that, I think you need the rubber stamp. I think there's only so much that you can say, like, you can convince people that you've got like the next great American novel, but it's just sitting on your desk at home and you haven't done anything with it. You need the external validation, whether it's through synopsis, whether it's through doing it like under a mentor. Maybe he's done some research already, and might make it easier to find a mentor. But you'd want to have that third party validation of somebody coming from a lab or from a university or entering that research in a competition or a conference, that they could get that legitimacy on it. Right. Um, if a student takes Another question, if a student takes UC approved A through G courses outside of the school and her school doesn't put it on the transcripts, how can it boost the GPA? Well, UC doesn't want the transcripts when you apply. You type in the grades, and then if you go to UC, you send in the transcripts from all the institutions, the high school, UC Scout, Apex Learning, the community college, and then it's good. The course doesn't have to be on the transcript, especially for UC, for it to count at all, because transcripts don't go into UC or Cal State. You just type the grades in, and if you go there, then they do a cross check on the transcripts in July of after the student's senior year. Okay. Um, Let me see. Can we put SMT honorable mention as one of the awards on the Common App? Yeah. What about regional piano competition awards? Definitely. Anything for piano, I think works. Anything for competitions works. You could put it in as you can put it in as an academic award. You can put it in as additional information. You could put it in as part of the description under the piano category in the activity. There's enough places in Common App where you can put that in. I think that you would have a number of opportunities to do that. Let me see. We've got people raising hands now. All right, let's see what we got. So two participants raised hands. So let me see. Okay, who needs to be allowed to talk? Okay, let me see. Okay, Miss Liu, I'm allowing you to talk. I'm going to ask you to unmute. Go ahead. Here. Maybe you didn't mean to put on your, maybe you didn't mean to ask for permission to talk. But Miss Liu, if you'd like to talk or chat, that's fine. If not, you hit that by mistake, then that's all good. Um, Let me see. But that's the but feel free to ask more questions. Okay, let me see. Um, I don't think we've got anything else. Sylvia, I would say, who's the owner of the presentation, you've got your hand up as well. I don't know if you wanted to speak, but I've cleared out all the questions. Great questions. Let me see if we've got anything else that came in. Oh, hold on. There's another one. To boost the UC GPA, lots of students take AP courses outside of school, even though they are being offered at school. Would you recommend this approach at all? Yes and no. It can work, but I wouldn't make a habit out of it. UC does not necessarily like to see core courses taken outside of school. Even though it looks like it's going to be exactly the same, at the UC Counselor Conference this year, there were some words that schools wanted to see the core courses taken at the campus unless there was a reason not to. If you do a couple of them, it's not going to do anything that'll raise people's awareness. But if you make a habit out of it and you're starting to take all classes, and you can't really do it, obviously, you can't do it with core classes like English. But if you start doing too much where you're taking classes that are offered at school at like Elite or Apex, um, um, to dodge like Miss Russo or something, then you're going to wind up. It doesn't necessarily look great on the application. But a couple here and there. I mean, if it's like, well, like the Fremont schools too. I mean, like Mission doesn't even have AP Econ or AP Gov, so you got to do those guys outside of school. But yeah, but I wouldn't make a big habit out of it. Go ahead. Anybody said anything? Um,
Eddie,
yes.
hi Eddie. So at the end of it, after you have the video, I'm sure like last few years, people are gonna ask me for the YouTube video. So
Yeah,
you can send it to me so I can share in the group.
I will.
Yes, and also for those of participants, if you thought about any questions afterwards, you can either email Eddie. His email is on the presentation slide, or you can type up the questions and send it to me, and I'll make sure I'll get those questions to Eddie as well.
I'll get the video sorted out, put it on YouTube over the coming days. I will send it to you, Sylvia. Also, as I said, I'll have a couple of other presentations. So if you found this one
Useful,
enjoyable and
yes.
helpful, then I would be happy to do more. I like giving information. Um, but I'll follow up, and please follow up with me if anybody has questions. It's the application season right now, but I try and get back to people quickly. Um, uh, um, but if nothing else, then thank you for the time. Let me see. Was there one more in here? There is more. Is it better to take AP Lang in 11th grade and get a B, or take a regular English class and get an A? Well, a college admissions joke is it's better to take the AP class and get an A, and then they laugh, and then you're left with no good information. The fact of the matter is, it depends on the goal. If a kid wants to do computer science at UC, they got to minimize B's. So if taking AP Lang, it'll definitely knock him down and give him a B, I wouldn't do that. Alternatively, if a kid wants to study like, the humanities at the University of Chicago and they really need to push themselves in the rigor, which Chicago usually does, then it's probably better to take Lang, AP Lang, and get a B. Good question. Um, yeah. But that was the last question. So with that, I
Thank
will
you
wrap up.
so much, Eddie. Thank
Oh,
you
it's
very
my
much
pleasure.
for spending your Saturday night and share with us such a wealth of information about extracurricular activities. As always, you always tell us so much, and I'm sure people will be interested in your next two sections.
Good, good. I'll update you on dates and times. I'll try and make it accommodating. Sylvia, if you hear anything back about time, then just let me know and I'll work it in and make it easy for people.
All right, for sure.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much. I appreciate it. I'm going to end this now. Um, and I'll follow up and get you the recording and we'll go from there. Thank you so
Thank
much. Please
you.
drop me a line with any
Bye-bye.
questions. I'll have a good one. Bye
Bye,
bye bye. Good
everybody.
Saturday
Have
night.
a good week.